Thanks for joining us. We at SolarWinds want to make software that everyone in your teams can use. Kevin and I, we work in database technology, which is traditionally very difficult to do. But the database is more important than ever because every application is a database, no matter what kind it is or where it's hosted.
That's right. More people in your teams need to understand and access their databases. It's a growing trend that we see in the news every day. And you need to understand what's happening within that platform. Traditionally, we think of the database as a black box. We send it a query, something magical happens, and it sends us back a result set. But we need to know more than that. And so what the SolarWinds solutions do is they accelerate your ability to see inside the database, proactively monitor and respond, perhaps before your customers, your end users even notice an issue. This provides you great understanding and insight into your database performance.
And that brings us to SQL Sentry, our product designed to monitor Microsoft SQL Server. SolarWinds acquired SQL Sentry in early 2020, and that's where both Kevin and I actually joined as a result of that acquisition. We really believe that SQL Sentry is the best tool to monitor SQL Server on the market. It was then, and it is now, 3 years after that acquisition. But Kevin, you've got to admit that SQL Sentry had a pretty big challenge, especially with that desktop client.
That's true. It's the most comprehensive tool. It has the deepest observability. It's incredibly powerful. But the problem is it's tough for new database people if they don't know a lot about databases.
And so today we're here to tell you that with the newest release of SQL Sentry, we've committed to making it even easier to understand, more intuitive to use, and better for every single person on the IT team to take advantage of.
That's right. Now we enter the phase where our portal was initially created to facilitate using a thin client. You're not licensed by clients. You can give this to as many people as you like, developers, DBAs, data analysts, and whatnot. And so with that browser-based client, customers wanted to be able to use it initially in our first release on their tablets and their phones. So if they got an alert and they're at their child's soccer game, they could look and see what the performance metrics were without having to actually go get their laptop out. But since then, with each new release, we've gotten closer and closer to full feature parity with the thick client. And in some cases, we've introduced some features that are distinct and unique to the portal. For example, there's already a feature set in there that enables you to create your own custom charts, pick and choose your different metrics that you want to appear on the chart.
And that takes us to today. So with the release of 2023.3, in addition to query level weight statistics, additions to the environmental health score, we've made it possible for DBAs to look at all of the monitoring in their SQL servers directly inside of the SQL Sentry portal.
So, Blythe, there's 4 things I'm going to show you today. The first is our environmental health overview. It's enhanced and changed. If you've used earlier versions of the portal, you'll notice that it's quite a bit different from earlier versions. After that, I'll take a moment and show you the Azure SQL pools monitoring that we have. And then I'll also show you query level weight statistics. And then finally, we have a few little bits and bobs that I want to show you at the end, such as our improvements for our customers who are using Amazon AWS RDS for SQL Server, and some new goodies that we have in Plan Explorer. So what we have here is the overall environment, all of the SQL servers that you have, and it has a score, 1 to 100, the lower being worst. And so it gives you a health score history, and down below here in the alerts log, you will actually be able to see the history of everything that happens in your environment. And on top of that, with each of these different alerts, you can do things like assign those alerts to specific users to resolve. You can leave notes like I tried this KB article and it didn't work. Now I'm assigning it to another person who's more experienced than I am. And you can, of course, close these different alarms and turn them off. Additionally, you can create all kinds of groups if you want. So you could have a West Coast set of servers that have their own score and an East Coast set of servers. Or you might have the dev, QA, and production servers, or maybe group it by applications, however you like to do that. And so the environmental health overview, if you've ever used what's called a NOC, National Operations Center, it gives you that ability to just look at the screen and get a quick feel for how things are in your enterprise and how healthy they are. You can also drill down and you can take a look at perhaps just those servers that are unhealthy, critical, some that are at risk. If you switch over to the healthy view, you can see which of your servers are doing well. And one feature that I really, really love is this delta. One of the things that I would experience a lot as an enterprise DBA at a global 500 company was my end users would come to me and say, doing the same thing we always do, nothing out of the ordinary, but the server's performing a lot worse than normal. Our user experience isn't as good as normal. And so I could take a look at the delta and see what has changed over the last period of time that I'm currently monitoring. And so we can see one particular server here has dropped 26 points recently. And so that's a really good indication that we should drill down on this server and go into troubleshooting mode. And so we can see when we are having periods of poor performance and good performance as we go along. And we can also drill down and take a look at what the severity of the alarms are, when they happened, and in some cases, the different kinds of advisory condition alerts that we have will give you further details about how to troubleshoot or research the particular problem that you're experiencing. So last full backup didn't complete. Well, that's a pretty well-known way to resolve that. However, some of these can be very obscure. And so we have incorporated the knowledge of hundreds of the top blogger knowledge, top Microsoft MVP knowledge into these. In fact, at one time we had 7 Microsoft MVPs on staff. And so this contains a lot of very powerful information that you can act upon. And notice across the top, it's generally used for health, but we could look at it by performance. We could look at it by what's happening in storage and IOPS. What are the top SQL statements happening at any given time? So we can see what is causing issues in our environment, and even could be saturation in TempDB. So we've got something definitely happening here where we had an outage. We could look at it by objects. So it contains information that you won't find in any other tool on the market.
Kevin, I love the improvements we're making to EHO. But what I really want to hear about is the query level weight statistics. This is something that is so exciting. It really brings SQL Sentry and DPA together, and it shows the power of our engineering teams and innovation at SolarWinds.
That's right. And so with query level weight statistics, we normally have a situation where we, at the top, we start with the entire instance of SQL Server. That's how the dynamic management views, the system tables, if you will, in SQL Server reveals that weight information for us, all aggregated up to the current point in time for the entire instance since the last restart. In this case, you can take it much deeper than that. So notice we have our list of top SQL statements here that have occurred in the time frame. It looks like it's about the last hour or so. And so if we drill down on any of these, you can see these are hyperlinks. So when we look at an individual server, now we see all of the top SQL statements that are running on that server, and we can then drill down on any of these particular SQL statements. And you notice here on the dashboard, we see a lot of useful information, memory grants, and that sort of thing. But these in blue, these values in blue are hyperlinks. And so we can drill down on that and see what the various weight statistics are as they accumulate on that query. And so it gives us a very good idea of what, if any, bottlenecks we're experiencing for this given query. And that enables us to do much faster and more detailed, more effective root cause analysis. Now, one thing that is also nice about this is if you're used to another product in our database portfolio, DPA, Database Performance Analyzer, it uses weight stats as its full focus on database tuning and root cause analysis. And so we have much closer parity between these two products. So if you're used to using DPA and you want to get the same kind of information out of SQL Sentry, it's much easier to do that now with these new features in the portal. So let me take a moment and tell you about our new enhancements for the Azure Synapse SQL pools. If you're used to the other SQL Sentry monitoring interfaces, this might be a little bit unfamiliar to you. With Azure SQL Synapse pools, we have a very different situation than what we have with a regular relational database, or even a multidimensional database like SSAS offers you. Instead, what we have is a massively parallel processing architecture, an MPP architecture. And what that means is at the top level, what we see here is the distribution of data, typically across 60 different shards, I guess is a way you could describe it. And this large high graph is the control node. And then you can license from Azure different tiers that have different numbers of compute nodes. And that's what we see in the middle channel here, or the middle pane. And then finally, at the bottom, we see the actual work happening over time. And so what we see here is data movement, elapsed time, rows processed, megabytes processed, and megabytes per second. The two I really keep an eye on are the rows processed and the megabytes per second processed. The other thing I look at is what is happening with these compute nodes, and if they are very, very distinctly different in height. As long as they're fairly close in height, that means the load is balanced well, but they can skew according to the way that the data has been partitioned. And so those are typical bottlenecks. Also, another aspect of massively parallel processing is that data has to move around across the nodes because not every node has all the data. So it has to be moved in order for the node to process certain kinds of data requests at different times. So this is very hard to visualize under normal circumstances. So we show this all to you through the graphs that we have here. And then also notice we have a couple more tabs. We have the distributed queries tab, which is very much like Top SQL in the regular SQL Sentry product. And we don't have any active requests at the moment, but we have completed several requests lately. And so we see the different statements that are being executed against Azure Synapse. We see the steps here below, and this is kind of like an execution plan, except textually, each step that happens one after the other. And then when you click on one of these steps here, for example, step 5, we don't have any SQL requests, but step 6 has quite a few. And so you can drill down on those, take a look at their behavior individually with each of those queries. We also have a tab for loads, backups, and restores. However, I don't have too much to show you here, although we do have some loads that have happened recently, not a whole lot above and beyond what you see right there. And then finally, we also have a lot of information that you can use in the event calendar. So you can see all the different activities that are happening over time. If there's a top SQL statement, if there's a multi-step loading process, or perhaps some multi-step calculations happening. So you get a really good view of Azure Synapse in a way that's easy to understand. And yet, without these kinds of tools, it's very, very hard to see this information.
It's great to see the developments that are in addition to this event calendar. It was one of the first things that we brought out. It's had a huge level of adoption and success with our database professionals. And so adding Azure Synapse or Azure SQL tools to that just increases the value that we can bring as our customers migrate to the cloud and as cloud adoption becomes more ubiquitous throughout all industries across the globe.
One last thing to point out about Azure Synapse is that we also ship the product with a number of advisory conditions. And these are powerful, custom-written search criteria, I guess you could say, in which you want to know anytime something particularly unusual happens. We currently have 3 showing here, but we have several more that will be shipped soon. And you can see that they include things like Azure Synapse SQL Pool distribution skewing, which I mentioned earlier, high memory utilization, or inaccurate statistics.
I love that. It's just an incredible piece of technology that the engineering teams have created. And again, to help our clients move to the cloud, track their performance beforehand, baseline it, move to the cloud, and then be able to monitor SQL Server wherever their data lives, including, including in Amazon AWS, RDS, and in the Microsoft cloud as well. So just amazing.
Or all 3, on-premises, in the Azure cloud, in the AWS cloud. We support all of that.
Great.
Now let's talk about a product that I think is probably one that maybe even folks who are not DBAs know about. And that's our free popular product, Plan Explorer.
Plan Explorer. I am just so thrilled. This is my favorite part, Kevin. When we acquired SentryOne in 2020, we brought over a number of great tools, and Plan Explorer is my absolute favorite. This is a free tool that we offer. With hundreds of thousands of users, Plan Explorer really does have its own community. And DBAs all over the world use this tool to get insight into their query execution plans.
That's right. In fact, we see not just DBAs, but we see business analysts, data scientists, developers as a core component, constituency, if you will, of our user base. It simply makes query tuning or finding a problem in a query that is causing it to perform poorly, makes it super simple. It's got very beautiful visualizations, nice bright colors. It'll show you a bright red when there's some kind of anti-pattern in your SQL statement. For example, something like large spools and spills to TempDB that take a lot of time, or sorts or implicit conversions. So it shows you where in your SQL statements that's happening. And normally that is truly a black box for most people who don't know how to read the XML of the execution plan or don't know how to use the query plan analysis features that come in Management Studio. So one of the things that a lot of people love who do use SQL Server Management Studio is that Plan Explorer is a plugin. And so we've just certified it and made sure that it is available now and working in SQL Server Management Studio version 19, which is the most recent release of Management Studio. So this is great news for anyone who does query tuning, which is much broader than just DBAs. So again, this is a march forward. You're going to see steady progress and a lot of new features in the quarters to come. So we have big plans, not just for Plan Explorer, but our entire line of database products. The whole portfolio is experiencing a renaissance. And to those of you who are currently our customers, I want to thank you personally for being users. I want to thank you for your feedback. One thing I love about our users is that they're impassioned, they care, and you give us constructive feedback so that we can make the product better for you and add new features that are going to make your life better. That's very important. And we want to thank you for coming along this journey with us. It's community focused. We love to interact with you, and I want to hear more from you directly if you would like to reach out via email or social media. And finally, I'd just like to express gratitude. Thank you for spending time with us. You've got a busy day. We know that. And we appreciate that you've carved some time out to spend it with us.
That's right. And I know a lot of folks listening to this are even just starting to learn about databases and how their database technology and platform affects their infrastructure, network, and applications. We want you to know that we're here on this journey with you. And wherever you are in learning about SQL Server or Oracle SQL or any of the NoSQL or open source databases, we're constantly making software and monitoring solutions that help you with wherever you are. So, again, like Kevin said, thank you so much, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Blythe and Kevin. As Blythe mentioned, we added SQL Sentry to our portfolio in 2020. And with these new capabilities, it continues to be the best and easiest to use SQL Server monitoring solution on the market. We are committed to SQL Sentry and will continue making this product better over time. Many of you have leveraged our ITSM solution, and you're telling us that it continues to be one of the fastest time to value, easiest to use, and lowest cost of ownership products in the market. With the release of ESM, the same user-friendliness can be leveraged by all departments in the company to begin adopting service management best practices quickly and cost-effectively. We have been a leader in enterprise software for more than 25 years, and I would be remiss if I forgot to mention the huge role you, our amazing community of customers, and partners have played in this success. Yesterday, on September 19th, we celebrated the annual IT Pro Day, a day to honor and recognize all IT professionals as the true unsung heroes of modern business. Thank you for making us better, for the truly incredible support you have given us over the years. And thank all of you for spending the past hour with us. I encourage you to give these new solutions a test drive, watch an online demo, or even better, start a free trial. And if you're not part of the member community, join THWAC for free and interact with the many database and service management users and practitioners on THWAC. On behalf of all of us at SolarWinds, thank you.